Yeah, good morning, everybody. Thank you guys for joining us today. And obviously, this is not the position that I would hope to be in. I would definitely not want to be at home and would want to be playing in the playoffs. But unfortunately, this is our situation. So, I think the biggest thing this year, definitely a disappointing year, and how we ended up and where we ended up. And, I think that over the course of from early on in April when we got this team together to where we are today, and April is kind of one of those things, we're excited about the year and excited about the players and the team that we put together, and got off to a bumpy start, ended with another bumpy ending. But I think for me personally, through it all, we really learned a lot about our team, just about the players, and just from an organizational standpoint, we built and we continue to build on our 3 C's, which is commit, compete, and contribute, and wanting to be the best on every single level. And that is the commitment. This is going to be another one of those off seasons where we have to do, we've been evaluating all season long. We're continuing to evaluate and, getting prepared, had exit interviews with the players yesterday and more interviews today as we start looking forward to the future. And our goal has continued to be back at the championship level that we are accustomed to, and playoff level that we're accustomed to being in. And we're going to work aimlessly this offseason and getting back to that level, and really evaluating each individual player, the coaching staff, myself, and what we can do to be better. So the 3 C's are what we hang our hat on. And one thing I talked to the coaches about yesterday is next year what our identity will be and how we will play, and the type of players that we will continue to look at and bring into our team. We got 6 out of our 13 players that we have this year that were on our roster. 6 out of the 13 are free agents. So we have some work to do in January, or leading up to January. There are some really good free agents that are out there that will be unrestricted and restricted free agents that we might look at bringing to our roster. And then, of course, where we stand right now, we have 2 first-round draft picks for the 2022 draft. But I sit here, guaranteeing that next year we will not be in this situation. We will not be in this position, and we will find the right players that we need to have, and, continue to build everything else that we need to get there.
Thank you, Tamika. Mary Ann, we'll go to you next.
Well, I don't want to be redundant, but I completely agree with Tamika. The start of the season was a little rocky. I think we had the most challenging schedule in the league at a time when we're trying to establish, a lot of new people and mesh them together. And, it's not an excuse. It just is, exactly what it is. 6 out of 12, 6 games in 12 days with a brand new team was tough. And then I thought we made a lot of progress after that. And it's just tough. What you find out, and what all of us know, is there are not bad teams in this league. Sometimes you had bad performances, or performances where you feel like you fall short, but there's no easy games. And so, it's a grind. And I think that's something that everybody here understands, and we have to level up and bring our level to higher. And somehow, some way, we've got to avoid all the injuries that we had. I've never seen anything like this, and particularly down the stretch. But I think a really valuable thing that we learned through this season is that when our backs are to the wall, this is a resilient group that doesn't quit, that wants to win, that wants to compete. And, I just point to playing several games, really shorthanded down the stretch, and being in those games. Very few blowouts, if you will, for a team that only won 6 games, we were in the game. So I think as a coaching staff, we have to examine, okay, what is it we need to be doing as a team, as a staff, to take that next step up, so we can turn, 6 or 8 close games into six or 8 wins. That's a challenge, and it's something that's doable. We're excited about the people that we brought in and who we have coming back. And we're excited about the future with the draft picks that we have. So sometimes, we're not the first franchise that's had to take it on the chin a little bit to then come out the other side better, more committed, and more resilient, and ready to go, and ready to shine in the playoffs. So, we don't want to just get to the playoffs. That's our goal, is to take the next step to get in, and then do some damage once we get in there. And ultimately, a championship is what this organization and this team and the people in it want.
Thank you, Mary Ann. Okay, we'll go to questions now. Howard, would you please start us off?
Will do. Mary Ann, Tamika, thank you both for taking the time to chat with us.
Hey, Howard. Sure.
Hey, Howard.
I got one for each of you if I could. Mary Ann, just to start, Tamika mentioned about, the 6 to 13 who are heading into free agency. So it's about half the group returning. Of that group, I'm just wondering, what do you think was the biggest measure of progress at an individual level that you saw this season?
That's a good question. I think it was different for different people, but I think overall our team got better defensively and certain people were, better in that process. I think we also learned that people that, had been backups and playing shorter minutes were capable of giving us even more in a bigger role. And I think that helped us grow as a team, that, we learned some things that maybe in a different kind of season, we might not have learned about them. One that stands out is, Lindsay Allen was capable of not only leading a team, but performing at both ends of the floor. She's a really smart player and really plays for her teammates. So, the fact that she got more minutes allowed us to see all of what she was capable of and not just like this slice that everybody accepted, oh, she's this kind of player. I think down the stretch, Victoria Vivian's performed better. Defensively, I think you saw, more of what she looked like when she was at Mississippi State as a college player. But some of that has to do with she's now 2 years post-op on a knee that, she had an ACL injury. And I think that's the tricky thing with injuries. You can be cleared to play, meaning, okay, you're not going to risk like tearing up your knee or your ankle or whatever it is again. That doesn't mean you're back to playing at the level you were playing at before you got injured and having the requisite, experience and time and confidence coming back off of an injury. So I think it's interesting that, she started really to step up in the second half of the season, which bodes well for us. And, we're happy with that. So just two examples of some of what we saw individually, but I think it, varied from player to player, honestly.
Sure. I appreciate it. And Tamika, from a draft perspective, obviously the amount of value that you've been able to get out of what have been lottery picks the last couple of years, I'm sure not what you're looking for. I'm just wondering, in terms of, as you think about this upcoming draft, and like you said, they're 2 first-round picks, and it's an opportunity to remake a franchise. Firsthand that a player like yourself can come in and remake a franchise. Is there a change in process? Have you learned anything from that period of time, or do you think it really is just circumstantial?
I think you have to evaluate yourself every year. And for me personally, I'm harder on myself than anybody else could ever be. And, so I am disappointed and frustrated as far as how we ended up this year. But the beauty of it is, God blessed me with another day and another opportunity. And I think next year, and one of the things we talked about yesterday with the coaching staff is, what do we need? And what are some positions that we really need to fill? And I think to your question that you just asked, Mary Ann, like when you look at individual players and how well they got over the course of this year, especially looking at our free agent, the thing that I'm most proud of is like obviously the resiliency. And, one of the things that when you look at playoff teams that are in the playoffs, you look at championship caliber team, their bench is a big reason that they sit where they sit. And so for us, having an opportunity to see some of the players that we might not have been able to look at and really get an in-depth, like, okay, like these are the type of players that we want on our team. I think that's been really important. So to look at the draft next year, kind of filling in like the free agent that we had, and we can't keep everybody, right? So we know that there are going to be some players that are going to that will leave by choice and some players that we can't bring back. I think for us, the biggest the biggest need that we have right now is the position at the 3 and the 4. We one way that I want to play, I want us to get up and down. I want us to be more up-tempo team because we can be. And so looking at the players that we have, and something that I told every player in the interview, we will play up and down. We will be more up-tempo. Defense has been a staple for the Indiana Fever, which, we got to get back to playing defense the way that we know how to play. And that is something, finding players that fit into the system that we want to have.
Thank you both.
Thank you, Matt. Howard.
Thanks,
Thank you, Howard. Ben Rosoff.
Yeah, hi guys. Thank you both for being here. One for each of you. Coach, I'll start with you. You mentioned the rocky start to the season. Obviously, getting off to that type of start can be hard on the players, but you guys did have stretches later on in the season where you showed a lot of fight, particularly that winning streak near the All-Star break. What were some ways that you were able to keep the team kind of motivated and hungry throughout a season where the wins weren't consistently showing up?
Well, I think first of all, we something that's extremely important to our franchise and to our team is people with character, people who are not going to quit. They're all in. And, you have to look past the record and look at your body of work every day and understand that, each game in front of you is your opportunity to show who you are and what you're made of and what you're about. And I think our players showed that they're not quitters. They want to win. They want to compete. Far from being quitters. They want to compete and they want to win. And I think we just found a resiliency right before the All-Star break or the Olympic break. We started to play really well, but that's not surprising in as much as we had a lot of free agents, a lot of new people. Our first full year together, really, because the bubble was like crazy for everyone. We started to hit a stride a little bit. Actually, all of us were a little disappointed that we had the Olympic break because we kind of were on a roll a little bit and, had some momentum and, that kind of broke it. We had to get back to practicing and start back up again. But, I just think we have character in our locker room, people who are committed to the process of working together to produce not only a winning culture, but a winning team and a winning environment.
Great. And Tamika, I'm curious from your perspective, both Kelsey and Tiara showed great leadership on the team throughout the season, but both of their numbers were quite similar to their first couple of seasons. I'm curious what you see for them as maybe the next steps that they can each take to being those next level players and not only contribute to the games, but contribute to winning as well.
Well, I think you can tell that we're really serious about Kelsey and her development and her being here. And we signed her to an extension prior to this season and want to keep her in the franchise. She's one of the players that we want to build with and around her and Tiara both. So I think with Kelsey, her growth and something that we talked about in her interview is, she just continued to develop. I take responsibility and we take responsibility. We need to find better players to put around her so she doesn't have to do everything and feel like she has to put everything on her shoulders. Not that she can't do it, but we have to get better in that. I think Kelsey came out, one thing about her, she's gonna work. And she's the player that will be in the gym, coach, try to call shoot around off in practice. We need to rest our legs, and Kelsey wants to continue to get better. Those are the players that you want on your team that you want to continue to build off. What she continues to do, I think she has done a great job of just continuing to get better every single year and, adding to her game and even talking to her, not satisfied about where she is and how she finished off this season, especially with our team not being in the playoffs. But she continues to talk about the things that she needs to work on. Mm-hmm. So I think the biggest thing for her is, this year we played her a lot we had to play her a lot at the one. That wasn't the plan, coming into the season, but Kelsey could play the 1, the 2, and if we need to play her at the 3, she could do that as well. And I think it's just because of her versatility, because she continues to work on her game, she can float and be and play in a lot of different spaces. Tiara, I think for her, she's got to decide that she wants to be one of the most dominant posts in our game. There is nobody, and I mean nobody in our league that can stop Tiara McCowan when she plays the game the way that we know she can play. And so that is something that, we have continued to press upon her. And she broke her own record this year in rebounds per season. Both Kelsey and Tiara continue to break records. And I laugh and I joke to Tiara, I'm like, T, you broke your own record without really trying every single game. And imagine if you can put that effort day in and day out. And I think that is this is going to be her 4th year. Next year will be her 4th year, last year under her rookie contract. And she's another player that we want to build with and around. So the thing that we continue to press on her is every single day going out and working to be, she said she wants to be the most dominant player. That's not a statement I made. That's a statement she made. And so my job, our job is to keep her accountable to that and making sure that she continues to get better in the offseason.
Thank you both.
Tony East.
Yeah, I've got a couple for both of you, but I'll start with you, Tamika. I asked Marianne something similar after the last game of the season, but this year you guys had that 6 games and 12-game stretch at the beginning, COVID protocols, Olympic break, switching home stadiums mid-season, only 6 active players for your last 2 games, just so many things you had to go through. What for you was the biggest challenge of this season, and what did you learn about yourself through that process?
I think the biggest thing I've learned about myself is patience and giving myself grace. I went into the locker room before we played Chicago, and I told the team, I said, look, you guys know I am a sore loser by every mean of the word. I hate to lose. And so this year had definitely been trying. We're going to go into this game. I don't want to, of course I don't want to lose. So we're not playing not to win. But what I want, the most important thing I want is that we walk out of this game, we walk out of this arena with 6 healthy players. And we did that. So I think for me, one of the things that I had to do along with the grace is trying to find small wins, like looking at the small victories that we had. And so, starting to take tab of first 5 minutes of every quarter, second 5 minutes of every quarter, and breaking up the game, which I would share with the coaches. So really being able to break up the game like that and look at areas that that we did really well and that we need to improve in. And those were kind of the thing for me, that kept me focused, kept me motivated during the games. And, of course, I look at our team and our players, and coach just talked about the character, the resiliency, the will to not win. It is easy when you lose to just be complacent and go out and not want to play and not even want to play and not even want to compete. But compete is one of our 3 C's. And I felt like night in and night out, and even in practice, the players went out and we did get better. It's not like we stayed the same, but every team gets better during the year. And even some of the things that we had to deal with this year, the games, the traveling, a lot of the other things, every team in the W had to deal with something to a certain extent. So I think for me, it really was just being able to focus on the things that we could control and staying focused on what do we need to do to get better for this team. And then for me personally, just being available, being present, and making sure the players knew, I'm all in to this team. I'm all in for this organization, and we will get back to where we need to be.
That's a nice segue for my next question, because you've mentioned, today evaluating players all season, what you need for next season at the 3 and 4, and the stuff you want to bring into your team. What do you view broadly as the next step for this team, and how do you make that happen this offseason?
Well, I think the next step for us is the evaluation process. Continuing, and I said this, continuing to evaluate myself, evaluate our coaching staff, evaluate the players. And, with 6 free agents out there on our roster, and, hopefully next year we have Julie Alamán coming back, and Florencia Chagas is one of the rookies that we had drafted last year. We might get an opportunity to bring her. So, just really being able to look at what pieces, what players do we have right now that are actually on our roster, take out the free agent. For the moment, let's look at our team, let's look at our roster, and then let's really look at, okay, which free agent are we going to keep and bring back? Which free agent do we really want to go after? And looking at our position that we want to fill, the 3-4, but also looking at our team. I felt like this year, the culture of the team was something that we had talked about in previous years. And off the court, if you guys saw this team, you would think that the way they hang out and the way that they are, they would carry that over to the games, and we'd be able to win games. But that didn't happen this year. But I think so. I think it really just continuing to look at our players, look at our roster, look at our coaching staff, and continue to evaluate. And the next step will be we need to put together a team that will be in the playoffs. So, one thing for me is we have to make the changes that need to be made, and we will do that.
And then Marianne, for you, a little bit of a happier question. You've been on championship coaching staffs. You've also been on bubble coaching staff. So you've seen it all as a coach. But this season specifically, what was your favorite part of coaching this Fever team?
Oh, wow. I really think seeing the growth and the resiliency of our players, through all the difficulty and all the adversity, like Tamika said, you have to take the small victories and the good things within. And there were a lot of good things. I think Tiara at times showed that she's just can go beast mode and can be as good a center as there is. I think Kelsey showed that she's as good a guard, combo guard. She can play one or two and be good at both as anybody in the league. I think we've, again, like I said, learned a lot about a number of the players, been a lot of bright spots. Another one that came late in the year and wouldn't have come if everybody stayed healthy was Emma Cannon. And Emma Cannon had a career high in the last game.
She shot the ball 20 times.
She shot the ball 20 times. We did talk about that. Took her 20 shot. We laughed and joked about that. But, I think my favorite thing is that this is a good group of people with a lot of character and a lot of heart. And we're going to get where we want to be. We're closer than maybe some people think. But we know that we grew and we know how close we are to being where we want to be, being in the position we want to be in. We're not going to make excuses for things. Like Tamika said, everybody is evaluating. I'm looking at myself, my staff, the players, everything, and we will be better. We will not be in this position a year from now.
Thank you,
Thank you, Tony. Charlotte Carroll.
Hey, thank you so much for your time. And apologies, this is a little off topic from the Fever. But after facing Connecticut a few times, what makes them so dangerous and how do you prepare for them? Marianne, if you want to take that.
Well, I think they've got first of all, they've got a lot of good pieces, great guard play with veteran leadership. Your starting guard's a veteran who's like all-star caliber, in my opinion. And then your backup is a player that's got a championship ring and understands how to lead. Then you got young players who are pretty good, but you've got an incredible player in Jonquil Jones at the 4 who at 6'6" can stretch the floor as well as post you up. Like, she's just dangerous wherever she is. And then Brianna Jones, I think, came into her own. If I was to say, most improved player this year for me, it's Brianna Jones on the block. They just have great players. DeWanna Bonner, perennial all-star. They're loaded with talent and experience, and they played together for now several years. When I was in Washington, we played them in the finals. So they've been through, gotten to the pinnacle and fell just short. So they have that group intact that went there. They've added a couple pieces. And so I think they're kind of on a mission, but they're extremely talented, well coached, and they've managed to stay pretty healthy as I think about it. They haven't had the injuries that most of the rest of the teams in the league, have had. Good for them. But they've been able to keep that group together, and they're extremely focused.
Thank you.
Thank you, Charlotte. And I think I'll go to Pat Boylan here next. I think Pat also pointed out yesterday that, not counting the Commissioner's Cup final, that we were the last team to beat Connecticut. So Pat, job well done finding that one.
Thanks, Ryan. I've got one for each. Marianne, if you look at this season in pieces, if you will, there was the start of the year. Then you had that stretch where you were 5-5 over 10 games. The Olympic break was in the middle of that. And then the injuries really started coming into play. But from that 5-5 stretch, if those injuries don't happen, do you have a feel for where your team was and where you thought they might finish the year had you stayed healthy?
Yeah, absolutely. No question. Everybody on our team felt like we were headed to the playoffs at that point. And like I said, not only were we playing well, we had momentum and we had a full roster, so we could practice and compete every day like you're supposed to. And it just became difficult again. We started the second half with a road trip, 3 games in a week, all on the road. It's just is interesting at a time when, losing Chelsea Perry was really hurtful for this team, because during the break, she was really playing extremely well. And as a young player who, has a lot of bounce and has a lot of potential, she was somebody that was playing well in practice, and we felt like could really give us a lift. So to Tamika's point about bench play and having a strong bench, we saw what Lindsay Allen and Emma Cannon could do off the bench. We had another one in Chelsea Perry, and that was kind of taken away. So I think for all of us in our locker room, we were really feeling good about, surging towards the finish line and making the playoffs at that point.
Tamika, you touched on this briefly, but it seems like when you consider the injuries that you guys faced and you add on The potential here to get Julie back, if the ping pong balls would ever fall your direction, free agency coming up, that you're in a spot where things could change more dramatically than the average person perhaps would think. Can you just touch on what you feel?
I lost the last part
I
of the
think
question.
you butt out there right at the end, Pat. See, he's still on.
Yeah, if I had to guess what, maybe just touch on a little bit of kind of like our process was a little bit of the question earlier. One other player that I want to bring up that we haven't talked about is Victoria Vivian. Her being able to come in, and we had to bounce around a lot with her this year, playing the 3. Then, we ended up having to move her to the 4, which she really, really excelled at. And then, of course, down the stretch, just being able to stay healthy. Yeah, I think that she's another player that, we kind of have not mentioned as much. As we look at next year and just kind of like what I do see, I mean, both Marianne and I have said, we don't expect to be in this position next year. I do think that having, 2 first-round picks and being able to have the lottery pick, and this draft coming up, it's a good draft class, and we have a potential to bring in not just 1 but maybe 2 players that could fit in and play some big roles for us. And then, of course, adding Julie Alamán back, which she's had a fabulous year, and hopefully we'll get an opportunity to go see her and watch her play this offseason. But I mean, you look at the players that we had, and you look at even the course of just what we were able to accomplish as of late. I think adding all the pieces and being able to come into training camp, one thing is getting right from the beginning, jumping into training camp, being in shape and being ready to go. Next year, the season, the way it is, it's going to be like every season. It's going to come and it's going to go by so fast. But really, I feel like the playoff teams you mentioned, Connecticut staying relatively, healthy this year. It's who's healthy. It's who can maintain that consistency. And I think one of the questions you asked about, or you answered about Connecticut, is the consistency of players. So we're going to keep our core group. We're going to work on what our core group will look like and who those players will be. And we'll continue to build with the draft pick. We'll continue to build with the free agents. And, we'll be not a much different team, but we'll be a better team next year.
Anybody else have anything for Tamika or Marianne? No? Okay, well, thank you.